Welcome. This is Happy Childless Mindset Podcast.
What is reframing a mindset for you?
Hello, Laura. So
Hello.
reframing mindset, it's all about stories. It's all about stories that we tell ourselves because life is all about stories. I once heard a wonderful person say that basically an event happens and we have an emotion that's attached to that. And the greater the emotion, the more of an imprint it leaves on us. And
Yeah.
then that leads to an explanation. So it's event plus emotion equals explanation. And some of the stories that we tell ourselves are bullshit. They are not
Completely.
helpful. They are really, really damaging to us and our relationships. So, yeah, sometimes really reframing your mindset, tell yourself a better story.
Yeah, I also think reframing, it goes to our stories past, but also reframing is seen in your future, kind of when I started reframing my childlessness, I could reframe the experiences I was having right now and I wanted to have instead of just like, oh, I'm going to reframe my stories and I wasn't abandoned. It's so for me, it's been really helpful, but it was kind of hard to do. Where did you
Yeah.
start?
I think one of the hardest things, particularly for women who generally are quite self-reflective, generally pretty emotionally intelligent, pretty self-aware, they tend to be deep thinkers. These tend to be the women that I am around. Like a lot of my friends are like this.
Mm.
And one of the big mistakes that we all make, and I include myself, is that because of the fact that we think and we're over analytical about everything, and we're always looking for the positives because generally we tend to be the kind of people that want to make other people feel better. So we always look for the silver lining. It's a wonderful skill, but you know what? This was really damaging for me because I was always jumping ahead and being like, okay, I didn't get what I want, or this didn't happen how I wanted, and I'm upset, and I need to quickly find the positive. And that's toxic positivity
Yeah.
because I didn't allow myself to grieve. And I think really one of the most powerful things you can do when you don't get what you want, things don't go to plan, is not to do this whole like, quickly, how can we spin it into a positive? How can we make it better? How can we reframe it? Don't be doing any of that because the only way to heal what is inside you is to feel it. So you have to allow yourself to have the cry, to grieve. Like I still do this. A couple of weeks ago, I had a meltdown. Like I just felt awful about everything. I felt like I was a failure. Like it just hit me out of nowhere. And I was like, okay, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And you have to allow, you have to grieve. So yeah, my point is don't skip ahead. Don't try and like quickly reframe the story just so that you're going to feel better. You are not going to feel better until you have allowed yourself to feel what you really need to feel.
Yeah, I do. I do something with my best friend, the one that I'm living with. I tell him like I need to vent, and he knows he just has to listen. No solutions, no follow-up questions, not, oh, that person is so bad or nothing. So,
Mhm.
then it's like I get it out. Now I can see it differently. And then if I need to cry, I cry. And or I sometimes I just like, okay, that was it. I can move on and see the lesson on the silver lining. But I do that step. And I'm really grateful that I have him for doing that because a lot of people is not don't vent, that is just complaining. And I don't
Mhm.
like to complain, but I do need that like outlet.
Yeah, you absolutely have to. I think there's a woman who wrote a book called Toxic Positivity, and I think she basically has a way of saying like you've got to reframe and reclaim the complain. So rather than just complaining for the sake of complaining, sometimes, yeah, do you want to vent? Do you want to be validated? Do you just want to be heard and not have people tell you, like this is what I think, or this is the solution, or this is the silver lining? You just don't talk.
Yeah,
Just don't talk. I just want to be heard. I just want to be
exactly.
witnessed. I don't want you to say anything. You just have to be mute and go, mm-hmm. And that's it. Your
completely.
job is done. Your job is done. Sometimes we don't want to just be heard. Sometimes we're like, okay, this is really shit, and I need you to help me. And you've got to pick the right audience for this as well. But I need you to help me to come up with a solution. I'm not quite sure how to handle this. Or you've been through this yourself. What advice would you give me? So sometimes it's about venting, sometimes it's about advice, sometimes it's about making an impact or being validated in some way. Yeah, if you know what it is that you got to get out and you can explain that to your listener, it definitely helps because otherwise, sometimes people jump in with helpful comments that are not helpful.
Yeah. In being childless, I get that a lot with, I couldn't have kids. Why don't you just adopt? It's not that simple, and I don't want you to fix me. And I'm not stupid that I couldn't come up with that idea. So I get that. I do have a few friends that I go to whenever I need something different. Like my best friend venting and like technological stuff and step-by-step stuff. He's
Mm.
great, but sometimes the sentimental feeling thing it kind of breaks him because he has TDA and HDH, and he's a point up that the autistic the the spectrum he miss it by a point. So he has that like, I don't get what you're feeling. So I go to another friend and I tell him like, this is happening to me, and he sends me a gift with a hug, and he's like, okay. Or I have another friend in Germany that I tell her things that I don't know who else to tell, you know? So it's important to have different people to fill your cup when you need different things, because it's not like I fill my cup shut with water. Sometimes I want a lemon juice or an ice or a tea.
Yeah, I often say this with my friends as well. Like we often talk about the friendship social diet. So I have a friend who she's kind of an ambivert. So she's a little bit extrovert, but she's also really an introvert as well. And
That's
with
me
her
also.
yeah, whereas I'm much more of an introvert, but she has some friends who are like her party friends. Like they would go out, they get drunk, like they party hard. And then we have friends like, where we have our deep and meaningful chats. And so I was saying like those people that you hang with, they're like your sweet treats, like in a diet, like you want to have a little bit of sweet stuff. You want to have some of your
Yeah,
treats, the things that you enjoy, but they are not going to nourish you. Like they make you feel good and they're really good fun, the candy floss friends.
yeah,
Great. But when she went through a really shitty time, she was diagnosed with cancer, which she's now in remission from. She's doing well, but she was like, they don't get it. They just want, the party version of me. So you have your candy floss friends, great for some things. Then you have like your protein, your like your building blocks, your solid friends in your life who are there to hold you. They might not necessarily be the most flexible, but they are there to hold
yeah,
you. They're solid. Then you have like your fruit and vegetables, like they give you energy and like they give you like lots of ideas. And so yeah, it's important, like you say, you cannot get your needs met by one person or one type of person. It's really important to pick your audience. And yeah, I think the other thing with reframing your mindset is always to treat yourself with compassion and curiosity because we're so hard on ourselves. Like we
yeah,
really are. And when you're going through something, you can feel like you're the only person who could possibly understand what it is to go through that and the only person who is going through that. And it's so lonely and so shame inducing. Like there's so much shame attached to not feeling okay because in our society, everybody just wants you to be positive all the time. And sometimes life is shit.
yeah. What I'm seeing in the childless community is that sometimes when they find a group, or also me, I've been there, I found a group that was grieving and passing the grief. It's never going to completely go away. There are going to be triggers, but I reached the acceptance point and I was like, I can't I don't belong here anymore because I can't talk about my happiness or my joy because I need to be sad about being childless. So kind of this is the idea of my podcast, my membership, everything that come from that. But there is like this two polarized kind of that's the only way to be, or you're super happy, toxic positivity, or you're completely sad and miserable for the rest of your days. And it blows my mind. I had a psychology that she was toxic positivity, and I hate her. Like I see her in the street, and it's like, because she would like I went with her because my agoraphobia and my panic attacks, and she would say things like, "Oh, but you're not going to die for a panic attack. Everything is all right." And it's like, those 20 minutes of hell are mine. Acknowledge them. So I acknowledge the grief, but it's what we were saying at the beginning. Bend, do something, ask for someone to hug you, something, and then reframe it because it's so important.
This is so true. It's move on. I'm sorry to jump in there, Laura.
Yeah, it's
I feel like
okay.
you are. No,
Go ahead.
because do you know what? I was reading this amazing book. It's by Caroline Myss. It's called Anatomy of the Spirit. And in it, she talks about this concept called woundology. And it is so powerful because it is exactly what you're saying. I know a lot of people, like I used to work in a domestic violence charity, working with perpetrators, not with the victim side. And again, because of the fact we work with perpetrators, there was a lot of like referral to victim services. And you see a lot of this people who keep saying, I just need to do more healing. I just need to do more healing. And what they do with this concept of woundology is they have their trauma, their wounds as a badge of honor. So they don't want to grieve so that they can let go and move on. What they want to do is to hold on to that, to justify whatever is going through their lives, whatever's happening. And they never want to get to the other side of the river. So they
Yeah.
get in the boat, the healing boat that will take them across the river. But when they reach the other side and it's time to reframe and move on because they've been on the healing journey, they don't want to get out of the boat.
Yeah.
They want to stay in the boat. And to give you the example she used in the book, because it's so powerful, she said that she was at a talk once, and one of her friends was asked by a guy if she was available to deliver a talk. And the friend said, "Oh, no, absolutely. I can't do June the 8th. No, because I am at an incest survivors group and I absolutely cannot do it. And, we never let each other down. Incest survivors have all been let down." And the guy was like, "Oh, okay. Okay." And Caroline turns to her friend and she was like, "He just asked if you were available on June the 8th. You could have said yes or no. Like, what was all that about? Like, you gave him a whole backstory about being an incest survivor." And she kept going on about the fact that, incest survivors, they let each other down. This was a really important thing. And that's when she realized that being like wounded, you hold on to this wound like it's a badge of honor. And you don't want to move to the other side. And then if other people like you experienced come into the group, like you're either grieving or it's toxic positivity and you're out. And that's not healing. The whole point of healing is to become whole and move forward.
Yeah.
It's not about being stuck in the story. So do your grieving, do the sobbing, like do the releasing. And sometimes, yeah, you will get, people call them triggers. I really like how there's a lady called Emily June Wilcox. She calls them flare-ups, like as if you have like a condition and you're healed from it, but then every now and then you have like a flare-up. And then you have to manage that with some medicine and with some rest, but then you move on. So yeah, I think, like you say, with your community of women who, for the most part, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, have done their healing and their grieving and now are looking like, okay, this is what is. This is what is. I'm not having a child. Okay. Like, let's look at life moving forwards. In that community, people need support and they need kind of inspiration, but they don't need toxic positivity and they don't need to be holding on to their wounds.
Yeah, we definitely don't need toxic positivity. It's the answer we receive from everybody else. Like, keep trying, just relax, just adopt. My friend, the friend of a friend did this treatment, and we hate that because you don't know what I did, why didn't I take that path, or if I took that path and I'm not telling you. But I'm seeing a lot of staying in the grief, and if me with all my mental health issues and my childhood trauma, because I've been abused by my mom and neglect and a lot of things, I can find joy. Everyone can. But there is this like, no, because your story is different and you don't know what happened to me. Or the other day, I read a post about a woman that didn't clean her house because she doesn't have kids, so she feels like she doesn't deserve a clean house. And that, like, my mind was, what? And of course, I didn't say anything because I couldn't begin to approach her because I didn't want to become the toxic positive person that tells her like, you're worthy, yeah. But at the same time, was like, how low are you? Are you're holding on to a grief that is going to kill you? And it can be literally because, bacteria, and it's not like I'm a germophobic. And also I know how important it is for that your environment, your home, your office, wherever, it's a nice space for you. I'm not a minimalist, I tend to, but you can be a maximalist and have a nice home where you feel joy and peace because this is my home, it's clean. But I'm struggling to like communicate that to the childless community, to you are worthy, not in a cheerful rain unicorn kind of way.
No, I get it. Not in the kind of fancy, fluffy, toxic positivity way. Yeah, and I think it takes people time to get to that place, like everybody's journey is so unique and you can't rush it. I know a friend of mine, she's now in menopause, she's in her 50s. So there is no, just keep trying because the
Yeah.
jig is up. It's done. And she has made her peace with it. She tried IVF, she did all the things. She is somebody who, she's a yoga teacher, she lives a very healthy lifestyle. It didn't happen for her.
Yeah.
And yeah, and still she's able to channel that mother energy. She has such a maternal vibe about her in her yoga classes with her students, with the courses she teaches. She works very closely with her husband. They both sort of teach people to become more embodied and in themselves through yoga and breath work, body work, massage. And I was just saying this to her, I was like, you have managed to channel that energy, even though you didn't get the thing that you wanted, you are still able to give all that nurture and that love. And so many people are impacted. And I think the point really is when we don't get what we want, and sometimes we don't. Sometimes shitty things happen. Sometimes the thing that we really, really are attached to that we think is going to like give us our happiness, it doesn't happen. And the truth is this, that it is not the thing that we want. It is always the feeling. So like if you want the partner, it is because maybe you want belonging or you want connection or you want security. If it's the child, because you want the unconditional love. I do know of women who have had children because of unresolved trauma within themselves. And then they've had a child without doing their own healing and because they wanted unconditional love from a child. And it's just, yeah, it's that intergenerational trauma gets passed on. So yeah, if you think about the feeling that you want, there are different avenues for that. And there's not just one thing, which opens up the world to you when you realize that it's not one thing. But that said, we can't, I don't think you can just bring people to that place where we are just because we have managed to get to this place in ourselves where we're happy or at peace or where we've reframed the story. Everyone's journey is unique, which is why it comes back to that thing of curiosity and compassion and acceptance. Like, okay, this is where you're at.
Yeah,
And if you fight for your limitations, then they're yours.
yeah, I get that. Not want. I don't want to bring her. I just want to help her because I
Mm.
felt so lost during my 20s and my 30s, and by my almost 40s, I realized like I'm not having kids, I'm single, nothing that I thought it was going to be happen. So do I drown in this or do I move forward and find what it is?
Mm.
And I want to be the person that I didn't have during almost 20 years. So it's like I want to help her, but at the same time, I can't. Like, I can give her a life jacket, but I can force her to wear it. And it's so hard sometimes, you know?
Yeah, it's frustrating that also the more you love and the more you care about someone and the more you see the possibility that they don't see, like, and you're like, oh my God, if you could only see like everything you're missing out on because you're so focused on what you don't have and you're missing all the amazing things that you do have. But that's the thing. It's really, really hard because then that's our need within ourselves and we have to detach from that need because we are not responsible for somebody else's soul path.
Yeah,
Everybody has their own soul path. And we cannot go out there and as much as we want to, and as much as you want to like shake someone and be like, oh my God, can't you see what I see? And you could be so much happier if you just
yeah,
let go of this one thing. But again, it comes back to that acceptance and understanding that everybody's on their own journey. And sometimes the paradox is this, that the more we sort of try and like help somebody, the more we keep them stuck. And
yeah,
sometimes you have to step back and just allow them to figure things out on their own. I mean, imagine if you, with a little child that's sort of like walking, if you continually interfered while it's learning to walk because it's like, oh, it's wobbled, it's fallen over, quickly, let me rescue it. You would be standing in that child's way of its development.
yeah,
You have to sometimes step back. And it is so hard because I have this with someone I love very much in my life. And it was killing me to try and support her. It was really like affecting my mental and physical well-being, trying to show her a different way, trying to support her. I was always there, like rescuing. And I realized after years, she wasn't getting any better. And she was still making the same choices. And it was crippling me. It was making me unwell. But she wasn't, there was no trade-off for the sacrifice.
yeah,
And I learned to pull back and just do what you say and just allow her to vent and just listen and just agree. Yeah, it's all shit. Okay. But I wasn't kind of going into rescue mode or offering a life jacket. And it's actually got much better. It's the paradox,
yeah.
acceptance.
Yeah, that's why I actually didn't reach out to this woman. I didn't comment. But because I felt that thing where you can't force her to see her self-worth. But
Mm.
that stuck with me, you know, like I keep thinking about, wow. But I get that because I get that not wanting to or not interfering in someone. Because without the help I needed, I ended up touching rock bottom, and that was the the jump I needed to, okay, and now I'm going up, you know. And maybe if someone give me a hand, it would be like, oh, I'm going to sit here and wait for someone to rescue me. So
Mm.
it is also kind of person to person kind of thing. You can't apply the same logic to everybody. Like we were talking at the beginning, I have a friend for this and a friend for that, and the same thing goes to who you help and who you don't help, and let them figure it out by themselves.
Yeah, totally. And also, you have no idea like what someone else's life looks like on the inside. You have no idea what their battles are. You have no idea like the baseline they're coming from, their backstory. And it's really, really easy to sometimes forget because we tend to judge people on based on our values and how we are. It's just like
Yeah.
part of the human condition. I do it all the time. And then you're like, oh, you think differently to me. Okay. Okay. But that's the thing. Sometimes it is really hard, but very often it's an unmet need in us. Like we're trying to sort of like help someone and rescue someone, and you want them to feel better. It's coming from such a good place. But that need is something that we have to detach from to let other people figure it out. Because truthfully, if you want to know the person who's coming to rescue you, you got to look in the mirror and it's you. And that is something that I really, really struggled with because I've hit rock bottom so many times in
Yeah.
my life. And I'm just waiting for like the guru, the guide, the spirit guide, somebody to come here and just tell me like this is what's going to happen, this is what you need to do, and I'm going to help you. And yeah, you'll be waiting a long time for that to happen because it's not coming. It's not coming. So yeah, I get that. It's hard. It's
Yeah,
hard.
I studied, I'm a coach, and one of the things that they teach you kind of right out the bat is don't give the answers. Because what you were saying, the stories, the trauma, the values, but also I'm not the one that has to live with the consequences. Because what's best for me might not be the best for someone else. So the answers lie within ourselves. The thing is, we sometimes need the help for being heard, validated, and then we can figure out the answer for us.
Yeah. And you have to
Like,
go through that dark night of the soul. Like to me, it's put it this way. Like imagine if like someone said like this is a really great movie and you were like, oh, amazing, amazing. But I don't want to watch the whole movie because who's got 2 hours to spend? Like, let me just watch the end of it so I figure know what happens. You wouldn't. It would have no meaning if you watch the last 10 minutes of any movie because you would have no idea what the characters have been through. There'd be no attachment, there'd be no understanding. It would be meaningless. And it's the same with our lives. If suddenly it's like we had a solution or the answer given to us on a plate, it would be meaningless. There'd be no growth. And, I say this all the time, and probably people get sick of me saying it, but I say it as much for myself as for everybody else. This whole journey in life is not about what you get, it's about who you become.
yeah,
And those challenges and the upsets that we have are there to strengthen us, not to weaken us. Sometimes we don't get what we want in life because it's not what we need or what's best for us. It's not part of our soul path. And we have to find our own way, our own narrative of reframing a story. If somebody else tries to reframe it for you, yeah, it's a perspective and it could be interesting, but it's so much more powerful when you come to your own realizations. And there's that expression that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
yeah,
And some people just they're not ready. They just want to keep fighting and like proving that life is hard. Or okay, then again, curiosity, compassion, acceptance. Those are the healing tonics rather than trying to reframe and like help people to see the other side because it's just a battle of energy otherwise. And it's really draining. And we've all experienced it. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's just frustrating.
yeah. Like when I started this path of of choosing my joy more than finding, I started like trying to talk everything in positive, with letting out the word no, and it drove me crazy. So I needed to kind of fluctuate with like I don't want this instead of I want that thing, and not because it's our brains are designed to survive, not to thrive and live and be. So You need both of them. Because sadness and fear also has a lot of things to teach us. Anger, sadness, fear, they come to, hey, look that way. You need to pay attention to that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. You know, but one of my favorite philosophers, he says that life cannot be cured, it can only be managed. And it's the same with our emotions. And it's a Danish philosopher called Søren Kierkegaard. And basically, I say the same to people, like, you cannot cure yourself of your humanness and your emotions. You have to manage them. Like, just because you know all the things, just because, like, for example, I have training in grief and bereavement, it doesn't make me immune from like experiencing the feelings of grief, you know, like just because you are emotionally intelligent. You know, one of my friends is going through a very challenging time at the moment. And she rang me up on New Year and she was really, really upset. She was like, I know all the things, like I know that she knows the things. She's smart, she's emotionally intelligent, she gets it, but she's still human. And she was just like, this is just really shit. This is I know that it's not forever. I know what the solution is. I know what I have to do. There was no like reframing necessary. It was just acknowledging that sometimes it's shit. And the more that you resist that, the more it persists. If you don't acknowledge what is real and raw, rather than judging yourself for feeling the way that you feel, it's okay to feel how you feel.
Yeah.
Just sit with it. Sit with it, sit with it, sit with it, and be curious and be compassionate about it. But I think one thing that's really important to know when you don't get the thing that you want, particularly around like not having a child, is that even though you didn't get what you wanted, you are worthy of good things. Very often we attach when we don't get what we want, it brings up feelings of unworthiness and shame and not being good enough. And then we use that to weaponize ourselves and that evidence as the fact that we're not worthy, that we're not good enough, that we didn't try hard enough. You are worthy of good things. And the more that you open up your mind and look at the other things rather than the one thing that you didn't get, and start looking at other things that you do, then the more that you are going to allow good things to come in your life because they're trying to reach you. But when you're focused on what you haven't got, it's really hard because your reticular activating system will not hone in on that. It will just keep giving you evidence of why life is a piece of shit.
I've been trying to do an episode about the reticular activating system, and I don't know how to bring it up because it's kind of so technical stuff, you know, but I'm going to take this opportunity. Is what makes us pay attention to a card, or in our case, or in the case of childless women, to pregnancies. We see pregnancies everywhere because we are paying attention to it. When we start paying attention to something else, because we can't not think in that when we don't want to. The pink elephant thing, I don't know if I said it correctly. It's not like I don't have to think about pregnancies because you're going to keep thinking about pregnancies. It's I want to think about dogs. And you're going to start noticing dogs, and pregnant ladies are going to be less often. And it's not that they disappear or no one else is pregnant. It's just you're not noticing them.
Yeah, it's looking for evidence of something else, really. That's all it is, because our brain is always looking for data to back up what it is that we need. And it's always looking for that data. And yeah, you can reframe it, and you can do it in a different way so that it doesn't always bring you the stuff that you're like, oh my God, here's more evidence of why this is really hard and it's not working.
Yeah.
So
or this is more evidence that I'm not worthy, that my life has no value because I don't have kids. Like I rerouted my RSI, reticular activating system, for like seeing other things. Like with my agoraphobia, I search for dogs. So if I see a dog, everything is going to be all right. I know, rationally, I know that's not true, but I take it like that. I'm going right? And I see a bunch of dogs. And since I've been doing that, I don't see so many kids or pregnant women or things that are triggering for my anxiety.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's such a simple hack, but as you said, it takes compassion and patience because our neurological paths are so strength in the
Mhm.
old things that there's a time where you notice both so much. This is not working. Yes, but it takes time because you've been doing the other thing for the last 20 years and it's not.
Yeah, yeah, totally. It's not a one and done thing. It's you
Yeah,
have to like anything, like you say, if you've had something that's imprinted in you and it's been there for so long and it's not enough to write down three, like affirmations or whatever, or to practice this for one day. It's not like that. You have to retrain your brain. So you have to be committed to it. But yeah, always, always with curiosity and compassion. It's not about being better, trying harder, like doing more. We have so much of that in our society, and I'm like so against that because I know how damaging that was for me. Because it just really compounded like feelings of unworthiness in me, and I was constantly trying harder and doing more. Yeah, you are enough. Nobody has come into this world as not enough. You are
yeah,
enough, period. You are worthy of good things. Sometimes we don't get what we want, but that doesn't mean that we are not worthy. And I think that's a really, really important thing to hold on to.
yeah, completely. Well, closing up this episode, is there something you want to say that where people can find you?
Yeah, if you want to find me, it's my name, so it's not the most handy phrase in the world, but it's Fleur Sclarandis. That's Fleur, and it's Sclarandis. I also write on
I'm going
Substack.
to leave in the comment section, in the description section, your page and your
Perfect.
name.
And my name, which is not the easiest. And yeah, and I also have a Substack called Words to Nourish Your Soul. So yeah, that's where you can find me and see a little bit what I'm about. But thank you
And
so
she
much, Laura.
sometimes is on IG and sometimes she doesn't want anything to do with it. So don't.
You won't find me on IG. You'll find three posts. I don't go on IG. I don't do social media. I find it really, really draining. I love long form content, which is why you'll find me on Substack. You won't find me posting reels on social media. That's not me.
I interrupted you, sorry. What were you
Oh,
saying?
it's good. It's good. I was just saying I'm not on IG, so yeah, I don't hang out on social media.
No, before I mention IG, you were saying something, but yeah, I'm sorry.
It's fine.
It's
It's
gone.
fine. This is raw and uncut, so yeah, it's all fine.
This is who we are.
Yeah, exactly.
Fleur, it was a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for for this conversation and for your friendship. And see you soon.
See you soon. Bye, Laura.